Okay, as you can see by this beautiful turquoise painted wall, I am back in my parents' place in California, which is awesome. And I've been struggling to make content during COVID. It's just too difficult. So I decided to essentially wait until I felt more inspiration. And I'm happy to say that by watching Ansie Twinkle's videos, my depression and like lack of motivation has been cured. It's been great. She's a YouTuber, a makeup personality. She does vlogs on her friends and living in Dubai. And generally speaking, she's not the smartest cookie in the jar, just based on all of her life experiences that she shares on her channel. But the really cool thing is, it's not meant to be taking yourself so seriously. And I think that's what I've been struggling with most of my, like, even a tweet. I somehow have to feel like I have to prove myself and my intelligence to the greater public sphere. And she just doesn't take herself seriously. And I think that, like, just the way that she comes across makes me feel like, well, if she can create like 300 videos on making mistakes and not taking herself seriously and ordering food and talking to her friends, that might maybe I have something to say. So I thought I would just film while I talked and like maybe keep some of this for a future video. Um, but one of the things I wanted to talk about was how my brain works, because I think that, like a lot of overly ambitious kids, I did a lot of extracurriculars growing up, had a lot of good grades, and then you kind of like plateau. I don't even know if it's burnout or just generally feeling like a lack of conviction in anything I'm doing, because most things that I try, if I am consistent with it, I generally just like pick it up. Um, then my biggest problem in life has been consistency. I can't even live in the same place longer than like 4 months. So how my brain works is essentially that I'm like, I think very quickly, but I can't speak very quickly. I have to like think things out a lot. And I write everything that I think so that I can make coherent thoughts before I say them. Now, this translates into people thinking that I'm thoughtful about what I say. I think it's more, I'm doing it right now. I can't even speak just like freely. I have to like think about what I say before I say it. But essentially, the reason why I'm talking about why my brain works is I decided to write a book about a year and a half ago, and I still haven't finished writing it. I think I wrote the first 3 chapters in one day and then spent a year writing chapter 4. And I think that's where I'm still at. And the draft is still open on my laptop. So the issue with this book is everything that I find interesting that pops up into my imagination gets put into this book, which just means that I have a huge brainstorm list of things I want to write about, but I never actually pull the trigger and write. Um, this is good and bad. I mean, it's a creative thing. It's not my full-time job. But at the same time, I have no idea when I'm going to finish this thing, and I'm getting older, and I just want to like have this under my belt. So, the other thing I wanted to talk about was why women kind of tend to get crazier as they reach a certain age. And I always felt very like annoyed by older women in my life. Either I wanted to be them, they always told me what to do, so I didn't like them, or like in the brown community, just like the auntie figure is just so appalling. They always want to talk shit about you. It's just, anyways, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I think you reach a certain age when everything just like goes crazy and you like lose your mind and you start thinking all these crazy thoughts. And I think I've reached that age now, so I totally fully understand why certain women in my life that have had an impact on me are also just really hard to comprehend. And I think part of it, maybe not all of it, like I'm not going to say anything about hormones or your period or anything like that, but I think part of it is this like biological clock mental state that our society puts on women, which is like between 0 to 10, your best not to sexualize young girls. Like you do everything to keep them innocent and away from media or attention that could be otherwise deemed harassment or dangerous. And you want to save them from exploitation. And then from like 10 to 15, your body's changing, your personality is, evolving. You have all this new exposure in your life. You're trying to become a real person. And then from 15 to 20, you're experimenting with friendships and you're getting a job and you're like uh, probably having some sort of angsty teenager phase where you're like acting out against your parents. And then 20 plus, there's this impending doom of like, oh, it's fast enough. Like you're like a girl, woman transitioning into a full grown adult, and you have to save money, but you also have to make money. And then you also have to uh, find someone to partner up with. And then you also have to please your parents. That's not for everyone, but that is definitely the case in my household. You have to take care of your family members and siblings, and you have to be a good role model and create a name for yourself in your career. And by the time your biological clock runs out, have children, whatever that looks like for you. So, despite all of the physiological changes that women go through during these like very distinct phases in their life, there's also these like mental breakdowns where you don't feel good enough. And then you have to like look at media tell you to be a certain way. And then you have to look at advice from people in your life that is contradicting, like, oh, self-care to an extent, uh, voice your opinion to an extent, don't be contradictory. That like it's a lot. And I think at one point I let myself take advice from so many different people that I just kind of like I lost who I was. And I also worked so hard from, kindergarten through high school to university to the couple of jobs that I've had now, that I've depleted my ability to handle stress very well. So the smallest thing just like irks me, or like I get overwhelmed or like anxious or act out. And it's very strange because I consider myself someone who's like super chill and like level headed. And kind of noticing this shift in personality and difference, and also wanting to be more introverted and like away from social settings where I would meet a lot of strangers, kind of made me realize that like a lot of women go through this phase in their life where they're just trying to figure out who they are, but then they have all of these like check boxes that they have to check off. Anyways, all this to say, I fully understand why certain like figures in my life when I was growing up were people I couldn't understand at the time, because there's just a lot of conversations that haven't been had between older women and younger women. So we just see the symptoms and the consequences of all of these things, which is like, emotional roller coasters and all of this kind of stuff, but we never seek to understand like how much pressure is put on someone. Anyways, going off on so many tangents right now. All this to say, the book that I'm writing is about, very simply, like, what would society look like if women don't have to be confined to a biological clock in order to have their offspring? So, in the society that I'm trying to create, um, women essentially harvest their eggs at a very like prime age for egg harvesting, and their children or offspring are incubated and born and we're just going to ignore how that all works after they die. So this was like one decision I finally made in this book is like the women, the norm in the society and culture is that regardless of your differences like ethnicity, religion, upbringing, whatever, it is normal when you reach a certain age and physiological like requirement that you harvest your eggs and then you have your kids, or rather you don't have your kids, they just happen and you don't worry about them. So your entire life doesn't have this like ticking time bomb of like, oh, are you gonna have your kids, are you gonna meet the right person, are you gonna settle down? And this kind of like underlying theme opened up a lot of different things that I could potentially talk about. But the problem is my brain and just goes in every single direction. It's like, oh, every single interesting thing that I've ever wanted to write about has to be in this first book that I'm going to write. So now I'm stuck with a protagonist that I actually like. The problem is she's named after a character from a really popular Bollywood movie from like 12, 15 years ago. And I really liked her hair in that movie. So I decided to name the entire main character for my first book after Preeti Zinta's character in Kalho Na Ho. This is my cure to writer's block. Anytime I like don't know what to do, I just decide, okay, what is the easiest shortcut to where I'm trying to get? And then I'll deal with it later. But now 4 chapters have been written, and I don't think I'm going to change this woman's name. So her name is Naina, which isn't even like, it doesn't, I don't think it even means anything. It's just like a freaking name. We're just going to go with it because I don't know what to do with that. So here are some 4 things that are going to happen in the book that I just, there's 4 different incidences that I haven't decided how it fits into any particular character that I've written out. The first character, sorry, the first thing, okay, so in the society, because babies are born afterwards, when your eggs are harvested, they essentially go into this like egg bank. This sounds terrible. Go into an egg bank and then you don't really, I mean, unless you know who you want your children to be from, like if you know your partner and you want to have kids from your DNA, you kind of just like give your eggs and then you believe in like full faith in the system that will have your offspring later and they will find the perfect like counterpart match to have your babies in the future. So this system is going to be called like this like AI baby chooser. It has a better name, but I'm trying to save something for the actual book itself so you'll actually read it. Oh my god, I don't know if I want you to read it. Anyways, moving on. Uh, the the second underlying theme thing in the book is this minor character who has a company, which is a game development company, not EA Sports, like a tiny one. And essentially, they create these like very experiential, like chat games where you're going through um, like unsolved murders and stuff like that. But what's really powering this game are real life cold cases. And the reason why this game developer decided to have the general public solve real life cold cases was because in this new society, because like people are genetically engineered and chosen and stuff, their actual the consequence of this is like women don't get harmed for just being women like we do this is going to sound terrible. Women don't get harmed the same way they do in today's world is also another positive experience from the society is like You don't get taken advantage of. You don't, people don't see you as a means to an end and stuff like that. So essentially, there's a lot of violence that just doesn't happen because women get to choose what they want to do with their time. They get to choose what goals they have. They like the partner thing doesn't have to happen right away. Basically, think like how men decide to live their lives. Um, so yeah, so there's a game developer. Like when you play the game, you're actually solving real murders. The reason why he decided to do this was because um, they were essentially just like not looking into certain cases or something like that. Anyways, I don't really know what the connection is here. Again, random things I want in my book that don't make sense yet. The protagonist is exploring her sexuality in the book. That's something. And then the last one is something I've kind of mentioned before, which is like around women peace or essentially like peace of mind from societal pressures and standards of like how you should be, plus peace of mind from being uh, like violated or harassed or taken advantage of, even in the smallest way. These are all things that I've been grappling with, and the way I decided to the way I decided to write this book was how I do most things in life, which is basically doing a list. So this is essentially how my book outline looks like. I actually have a full book outline. Most people they just write and then they like come up with what a plot looks like. For me, I have to have every single chapter make sense and numbered out, which is actually causing me way more overwhelm and stress than actually just probably writing a couple of storylines and then stitching them together later. So essentially, I have like a number of pages that I want to hit, and then I divided the number of pages by the number of chapters, and then divided the number of chapters by like the number of sections the book should have in order to make sense. And then each section is going to have like a predominant voice that the narrator has. Oh my god. Anyways, just thinking about it is overwhelming. I don't know how I'm going to write this book. I feel like if I was someone who is good with like makeup, I could just like do stuff on my face and be like, okay, yes, this is how I want my face to look. I don't, I mean, this is how much I like basically smoothed out my baby hairs for this video. Um, the problem of being able to think too hard about something is that you just don't pull the trigger and do it.
Okay, so I'm here to get my favorite coffee when I'm home, and it's called 85 degrees Celsius bakery coffee. It's basically like this delicious creamer that they add to their brewed coffee that's just super good. But I wanted to continue my train of thought of the story that I'm trying to write. So essentially, the main character is like a cultural anthropologist, and she's in India looking at some ruins or something like this, and basically waiting for some sort of a research grant so she can continue her project. And she has a professor. And I've already told you the bit about the society, basically, where like this is a society where women essentially don't have to have kids. They can like go do whatever they want. And when she's in India, she like comes across a line of people in a particular family where in the society where this is the norm, they continue to have like traditional births, or like the conventional way of just like having children through a partnership and birthing their kids during their lifetime. So she's like basically evaluating what's the right way to go about life, and is this the right way to what is actually practicing the agency that she has as a woman. And through her multiple relationships in the story, she kind of like learns how much people have to fight for in order to protect what they believe is their right. So I've been kind of like going through different scenarios and plot lines and working on different aspects of the book and different characters that I think could be quite interesting. And the way that I'm trying to write this book is that this protagonist isn't actually the most interesting character. The people that she meets are way more interesting than her, but she kind of learns through their experiences and grows into who she finally becomes at the end of the book. So that's what that's about. And I still have many questions, so I'm not surprised if it doesn't fully make sense. But I'm gonna go grab a coffee and take you with me. Thank you. Girls in LA come out of the womb knowing how to like drink iced coffee, I swear. This is like part of the LA starter pack. Okay. So other stuff from the book. So essentially, I'm trying to weigh how much I need to talk about each character and how much I can like just relay parts of the plot rather than having to say each thing that's happening. The best writers are who can like explain parts of the plot without actually having to say like, and then Sally went to the store. Also wanted to quickly explain what's going on with my nails. I actually recently discovered nude products for my skin tone, and that includes nail polish. And I accidentally didn't know which one to pick, so I started painting my nails all the different colors of nude that worked with my skin tone and realized this is my new vibe. I'm going to always buy 3 shades of the same color so that I can make my nails look cool. Because anytime I get one color and I paint all my nails the same thing with my skin tone, it just looks very flat. But I really like this, so I'm probably going to do this more often. And this is my natural nails, which is pretty awesome too.